All righty. Hopefully we can be going on without the stream cutting off. All praises to the Most High in Christ. Let me see how we're sounding. Okay, we're sounding real good. All righty, we got that. And I apologize for running late. Had some personal things come up, but we are rocking and rolling right now. So let's get started. Go to my WhatsApp group. Alrighty. I am on all platforms. All praises to the Most High that we are able to come together once again in unity and learn about the Bible. We're going to be learning about scriptures. All praises to the Most High in Christ. Um, I'm coming on a little bit late tonight, so once I get done, I am going to have to call it a night because some personal things came up. But we're going to be rocking and rolling anyway. Shalom, brother Bless. How you doing? I'm going to mod you up. All righty then. That's one of my good brothers right there, brother Bless. And we're going to be rocking and rolling. What we're going to be talking about tonight, we're going to be diving into the Song of Moses found in the book of Isaiah. Now, we're not going to talk about every passage that alludes to the Song of Moses, but we're going to go through enough passages that you can actually clearly see what's going on. So, I fin to actually start now. And if people come in later on, we just can go ahead and bring them up as well. Alrighty, so if you can look on my screen on YouTube, you can see the visuals. If not, you just gotta look at my face or hear my voice. So Isaiah's Song of Moses. We're going to be looking at things coming from the Dead Sea Scroll community as well as the Brenton or the updated Greek version translated to English, which we call the Septuagint. But it will be a copy of the original Septuagint. But we're going to be using some of the older codexes for us to get the full understanding of the ancient world. We're not going to be looking at the Masoretic per se, because it's more of a recent understanding, and those guys had somewhat of an agenda. If you guys don't mind, please invite some people in the room so the brothers and sisters to know can know that we are on, and I will actually invite as well so they didn't know that we are on and popping, and they could be in different rooms because I know some great conversations indeed was happening today. So I can't knock them for going into those rooms that have those great conversations. And it seems like a lot of people have their notifications off. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to talk to them anyway. So, all righty. Deuteronomy 31 from scroll 1Q5 found in the Dead Sea Scroll. Starting at verse 8, it says this: Yahweh himself is who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not fail you nor forsake you. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Moses wrote this law and delivered it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who bore the ark of Yahweh's covenant, and to all the elders of Israel. Now, verse number 10 is going to be very important into understanding the Song of Moses in general, as well as the Song of Moses being in Isaiah. It states this right here. Moses commanded them, saying, at the end of every 7 years, at the end of every 7 years, in the set time of the year of release, in the Feast of Tents, which is Tabernacles, verse 12, assemble the people, the men, and the women, and the little ones, and the foreigners who are within your gates, that they may hear, and that they may learn, and fear Yahweh your God, and observe to do all the words of this law, and that their children who have not known may hear and learn to fear Yahweh your God, as long as you live in the land where you go over the Jordan to possess it. So, did we get what was stated there? It was stated that, and this is what a lot of people leave out when talking about the law of Moses, as well as the Song of Moses, and etc. This song, this information was to be proclaimed to Israel every 7 years in the time of the year of release during tabernacles. So what does that mean? That means that you have to know about the year of release to understand the proclamation of reading this law and keep giving it to the people in every generation. You got to understand what the time of release is. So let's go through the time of release first. Deuteronomy 15, from the scroll 4Q30, found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. It says this: at the end of every 7 years, you shall counsel debts. This is the way it shall be done. Every creditor shall release that which he has lent to his neighbor. He shall not require payment from his neighbor and his brother, because Yahweh's release has been proclaimed. Of a foreigner, you may require it, but whatever of yours is with your brother, your hand shall release. However, there shall be no poor with you, for Yahweh will surely bless you in the land which Yahweh your God gives you for an inheritance to possess it. So before we continue, before we break that down, this happens in this whole proclamation is done in the year of release during the Feast of Tabernacles. So let's talk about tabernacles real fast, and then we're going to show what all of this is talking about. So Leviticus 23:39, it says this: and on the 15th day of this 7th month, when you shall have completely gathered in the fruits of the earth, so tabernacles is a gathering of the fruits, you shall keep a feast to the Lord 7 days. And on the first day there shall be a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. And on the first day ye shall take goodly fruit of trees, and branches of palm trees, and thick bole of trees, and willows, and branches of osiers from the brook, to rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days in the year. It is a perpetual statute for your generations. In the 7th month you shall keep it. 7 days you shall dwell in tabernacles. Every native in Israel shall dwell in tents, that your posterity may see that I made the children of Israel to dwell in tents when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So, what was just explained was the reason behind the Feast of Tabernacles. The Feast of Tabernacles was to bring in remembrance that the Lord saved the children of Israel. And there was an exodus out of bondage. And when they went into the wilderness dealing with that exodus, the Lord placed them in a quote unquote tent. He placed them in a place of safety in which they could observe and acknowledge the presence of God being with them. So tabernacles was an acknowledgement of what happened during the Exodus. See, this is important to understand. So, if everyone understands tabernacles is the 15th day of the 7th month, what is the 10th day of the 7th month? That's atonement. That's atonement. So when you put it together, first sin has to be atoned for, and then you can rest with God. Let me say that again. Tabernacles was the resting with God, which happens after atonement when sins are forgiven. But the way Moses designed via the Lord the Song of Moses, first they have to forgive all of the debt. And then when they forgive all of the debt, they then learn all of the requirements to be people of God. Let's say this again. When they are listening to the song of Moses, first thing first, they are learning how to have a relationship with their brothers. They're forgiving all debt. And then after they learn how to have a relationship with their brothers, they learn how to have a relationship with their God. So they learn about forgiveness of self and each other. Then they learn how to be with God. So they are taught while they are learning to have this relationship with God, they are taught the Song of Moses. Why are they taught the Song of Moses when they are learning to have a relationship with God? Well, the Song of Moses explains what happens when you do not have a relationship with God. Let me say that again. The Song of Moses explains what happens when you do not have a relationship with God. It explains what happens when you do not have brotherly love. So first they learn brotherly love, then they learn how to be with God. And when they're learning how to be with God, he's teaching them what happens when you are not with him, what happens when you do not display the brotherly love. So this is what's been set up for them learning the Song of Moses every 7 years during the time of tabernacles. Now, let's listen to some of the warnings about or that's been presented in the Song of Moses, because these warnings get overlooked by all futurists. All futurists that say everything's in our time period, it's supposed to happen today, and etc. They overlook the warning of the Song of Moses. So this is Deuteronomy 31 from scroll 4Q30, verses 16 and 17. Now listen to what's stated. It says, Yahweh said to Moses, behold, you shall sleep with your fathers. This people will rise up and play the prostitute after the strange gods of the land, where they go to be among them, and will forsake me and break my covenant which I have made with them. So that's what's been stated in Jeremiah. They broke my covenant even though I was a husband to them. He says this in Deuteronomy 31. They will break my covenant which I have made with them. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake you, and I will hide my face from them. And other renderings in the Dead Sea Scroll community, Dead Sea Scroll says, I will forsake them and hide my face from them. So the you there is Moses and what Moses brought, and the them is the people of Israel. But let's keep going on. And they shall be, now listen to what happens when the Lord forsakes them. And they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall come on them. I'm going to pause right there. People, this is Jacob's trouble being professed in Deuteronomy 31. Let's say this again. This is Jacob's trouble being proclaimed in Deuteronomy 31. Not only is it Jacob's trouble, this is the tribulation of Jacob being proclaimed in Deuteronomy 31. So when Jeremiah speaks of Jacob's trouble, he's talking about what Moses proclaimed in Deuteronomy 31. When Daniel speaks of a time of tribulation, when the Messiah speaks of a time of tribulation that has never been, they're proclaiming what Moses spoke of in Deuteronomy 31. Let me read Deuteronomy 31 again for you to understand this. It says this. Then, this is verse 17. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake you, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall come on them. See, that's your evils, that's your troubles, that's your Jacob's trouble, that's your time of tribulation that has never been since there was a nation on the earth. That's it right there being proclaimed in Deuteronomy 31. This is a violation of the old covenant. But let's keep going on, because this is also what it says. So they will say in that day, haven't these evils come on us because Yahweh our God is not among us? Now, everybody, let's be honest with this text. The Lord said he will hide his face from them. The people will say, haven't these evils come on us because Yahweh our God is not among us? They are not physically seeing the Lord hide his face from them. They are not physically seeing Yahweh, their God, not being among them. The only way they know Yahweh, their God, is not among them, the only way they know that God has hidden his face from them is because they become devoured and many evils and troubles come on them. They are looking at the reality of the life they are living to understand Yahweh, our God, is no longer among us. Let me say that again, and then I'm going to say it the opposite way. For us to understand what it means to have God with us. So, when these people experience evil, when they experience troubles, when they experience being devoured, then they know this is happening because God is no longer with us. So that means the opposite is also true. When they are not devoured, when there is not many evils on them, when there's not many troubles coming on them, Yahweh their God is with them. So, when Yahweh their God was stated to put his tabernacle among them, the way they know he has placed his tabernacle among them is because they no longer go through the evils and the troubles and being forsaken and being devoured via judgment. It was never them seeing the Lord with their eyes physically to know if he was with them or not. It was always the actions that befell them for them to know if God was still with them or not. So hopefully we understand when we get to the New Testament, it doesn't change. When they get to the New Testament, in order to know that the Father and the Son is with you, is by, quote, the many evils and the troubles no longer coming upon you. The being devoured via judgment no longer happens to you. That's how you know the invisible God is right there among you. So we should know this now. Here's verse 18. I will surely hide my face from him in that day for all the evil which they have done, in that they have turned to other gods. Here's verse 19. Now, therefore, write the words of this song for yourselves and teach it to the children of Israel. Put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. What was stated for him to do? Put the words of the song of Moses in the mouth of Israel. Then that song would be a witness for God against the children of Israel. So when you go into the book of the Revelation, and these two witnesses who are clothed in sackcloth, which happens during a time of mourning, which happened during a time of atonement, it's stated that they fire came out of their mouth and it burnt up all of their enemies. And everyone who went against them was supposed to be killed, judged in that way from that fire out of their mouth. And when those witnesses fell, when they was killed, the people rejoiced because of the torment the witnesses brought to them. Guess what the witnesses was proclaiming, people? The song of Moses. They were proclaiming the song of Moses. Okay? That's what's happening in Revelation. I know people have taught y'all it's about United States or what's happening in our future, but this is an Israelite story. They're proclaiming the song of Moses, and it's piercing all of the wicked to the core. Let's keep reading. Deuteronomy 15 from the scroll 4Q30 Dead Sea Scroll Community. It says this. Deuteronomy 15, 28. And this actually should be Deuteronomy 31. So I don't know. I must have mixed that up. But it's supposed to be Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy 31, verse 28. It says this. Assemble to me all the elders of your tribes and your judges and your officers. So he's speaking to all of the ruling class. Once again, Moses is speaking to all of the ruling class. You have to know all of this to understand what's happening in the New Testament when Christ goes out speaking against the rulers in the New Testament. So this is Moses proclaiming something to all of the ruling class. Let me say this again. Assemble to me all the elders of your tribes, that will be the rulers, all and your judges, that will be the rulers, and your officers, that will be the rulers, that I may speak these words in their ears and call heaven and earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death, you will utterly corrupt yourselves and turn away from the way which I have commanded you. And evil will happen to you in the latter days. What is the evil? He already proclaimed earlier that many evils and troubles was going to befall them because they forsook him being God. So now Moses is saying it again. I know you guys are going to corrupt yourselves. So in the latter days, that word right there, I think it's ekeret or ekeret in Hebrew, is used for last and latter. So this is a latter/last days scenario. He says, in the last days, I know evil will happen to you because you will do that which is evil in Yahweh's sight to provoke him to anger through the work of your hands. Moses spoke in the ears of all the assembly of Israel the words of this song until they were finished. So, what is the song? The song is the poetic way of explaining the curses in Deuteronomy 28. Here's Deuteronomy 28 from scroll 4Q42. But it shall come to pass, verse 15, but it shall come to pass, if you will not listen to Yahweh, your God's voice, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you to today, that all these curses will come on you and overtake you. So the song of Moses, the evils, right? The troubles, they are the curses proclaimed in Deuteronomy 28 in song format. So, once again, the Song of Moses is the curses of Deuteronomy 28:15 all the way to the end in song format. So it's stated in the last days, when everything is getting ready to be finished and complete, the curses will come upon Israel again for a finality, for the final time. Moses jumped straight to what's going to happen in the last days of Israel, when the curses of Moses will come on them the last and final time. That's what's happening in the Song of Moses. Now, let's look at some of the Song of Moses proclamation, and you will see Isaiah the prophet stating what this looks like in the last days. So we done already read Deuteronomy 31. The Lord said that these troubles and evils, aka Jacob's trouble, the tribulation period of Jacob, this was going to happen in the last days for the final time. This was the last time. This was the one that was proclaimed to happen in the latter days. So now Isaiah also spoke on the latter, aka last days, and we're going to see how Isaiah was using the Song of Moses to proclaim what it was supposed to look like in the last days. And don't forget, everyone, the last days is the last days of the old covenant. It was the time period that the curses from the law was going to befall that last and final time. The last days is the days that the Messiah walked the earth in human form, all the way up to when the law was finally taken away. That's the last days. So let's break down some of these scenarios. Deuteronomy 32 from scroll 1Q15, Dead Sea Scrolls. It says this. This is what was supposed to happen in the latter days. It says this. He said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be. For they are a perverse generation, children in whom is no faithfulness. So these people don't have faith. They lack faith, believing and trusting in the Most High, that he will do what he said he was going to do. Not only believing it, but knowing that he's going to do everything he said he was going to do. They lack faith in the Most High. So they are no faithfulness. He says, they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. I will move them to jealousy with those who are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. So the Lord is giving them the energy that they pushed out. Since they're going to move him to jealousy, he's going to move them to jealousy. Since they're going to provoke him to anger, he's going to provoke them to anger. So he said, you're going to use that which is not a God. Well, I'm going to use that which is not a people. You're going to provoke me to anger with your vanities. So I'm going to provoke you to anger with a foolish nation. That's how we're going to do this thing. So now Isaiah 2 piggybacks off of that and he explains this. Let me show you. Isaiah 2 from scroll 1Q, Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm going to restart at verse 2. It shall happen in the latter days. That's the same latter days that Moses spoke of in Deuteronomy 31, that these evils is going to befall you in the latter days. They're talking about the same time period. It says this, it shall happen in the latter days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established on the top of the mountains, and it shall be raised above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. Many people shall go and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion the law shall go out, and Yahweh's word from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and will decide concerning between many peoples. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. And nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Listen to the verse that follows that. House of Jacob, come and let's walk in the light of Yahweh. For you have forsaken your people, the house of Jacob, because they are filled from the east with those who practice divination like the Philistines, and they clasp hands with the children of foreigners. So what was stated there? Isaiah is like, hey, the nations are coming to our God and they are learning from him. Jacob, we need to do the same thing. The Lord has forsaken us. You remember he said, I will forsake you in the last days and see what your end will be like. And this is him talking about the latter days. So they had been forsaken. But what happens when they're forsaken? He's going to bring them to anger with not a people. That jealousy. So here Isaiah 2 is explaining how that jealousy is working out. The Lord forsook Jacob. He's bringing the other nations in. Therefore, it's a call out to Jacob. Hey, we need to walk in the light of Yahweh, just like those nations are walking in the light of Yahweh. So you see the jealousy already being called out. He's saying, hey, they are doing it. We need to do it as well. The jealousy already is being called out. Now, let's see here. Let's go to the next one. Deuteronomy 32 from scroll 4Q38. This is something else that was proclaimed in the Song of Moses. It stated this, starting at verse 22, for a fire is kindled in my anger that burns to the lowest Sheol, devours the earth with its increase, and sets the foundations of the mountains on fire. Did we not just read that the Lord said he was going to devour them? Well, let's keep reading. Verse 26. I said that I will scatter them afar. I will make their memory to cease from among men. what was stated in the latter days, the Lord's anger was going to be so strong. It was like it was going to be a fire that burned from earth all the way into Sheol. Lo and behold, in the Revelation, it seems like we have fire in Sheol. But let's keep going on. I said that I would scatter them afar. So he's proclaiming in the last days, I'm going to scatter Israel. And then I'm going to read of the people he scattered. Now, let's look at Isaiah proclaiming this same event. This is Isaiah 3 speaking on the last days from scroll 1, verse number 8. For Jerusalem is ruined and Judah is fallen because their tongue and their doings are against Yahweh to provoke the eyes of his glory. So, according to Isaiah, Jerusalem was going to be ruined. It was going to fall because they provoked Yahweh to jealousy, to anger. So his response was he was going to destroy that covenant land and people. But hold on, here's Isaiah 24 from the scroll 4Q57, speaking on the same event. Listen to the poetic language that Isaiah used. It says this, verse 1. Behold, Yahweh the Lord makes the earth empty, makes it waste, turns it upside down, and scatters its inhabitants. So you see that language on how it appears that the Lord is destroying every habitation that mankind lives on. That's the poetic imagery. But the truth of the matter is, this is something that was prophesied to come against Israel. He said that he would scatter them, not the entire globe, but Israel. Let me read it again, Deuteronomy 32:26. I said that I would scatter them afar. Isaiah 24, and scatters its inhabitants. So, if that haven't convinced you, let me read verse 5. The earth also is polluted under its inhabitants because they have transgressed the laws, violated the statutes, and broken the everlasting covenant. So now we know that has to be about Israel. That had to be about what happened in the land of Canaan, because this was prophesied to happen to them in Deuteronomy 28 and Deuteronomy 32. And verse number 6 says this: therefore, the curse has devoured the earth. Deuteronomy 32:22. For a fire is kindled in my anger that burns to the lowest Sheol, devours the earth with its increase. Verse 6, therefore the curse has devoured the earth, and all those who dwell therein are found guilty. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. 32:22 of Deuteronomy. A fire is kindled in my to the low, devours the earth with its enemies, and set from Isaiah's mouth and Moses' mouth is coming upon those who violated the covenant and transgressed its laws. In Isaiah 24, it's talking about a destruction of the earth. Isaiah 24 is talking about the earth's destruction, but he's explaining what he means about the earth being turned upside down, being becoming empty, being made waste. He explains that this is the curse devouring the land that's causing those inside of it to be burnt and scattered. So when you come and say heaven and earth being destroyed, Isaiah has already proclaimed the destruction of the earth is dealing with those who violated the covenant and what was partaking in the land they were in. See how this works? See how this isn't about a globe? This isn't about a planet? You see how the prophets has already explained what they meant? But let's keep going on. Here's Deuteronomy 32:36. For the people who's waiting on Christ to come back and judge the planet. For the people that's looking at Revelation chapter 20, when the Lord is in his judgment seat judging the wicked, those that was considered dead that came out of the sea, which is an what happened Exodus motif when the right there, because we ignore biblical stances and make our own stances. We don't see that this is alluding back to a judgment that's following the second Exodus. But let's keep reading. This is what the Lord says. Verse 32, Deuteronomy 32:36. For the Lord shall judge his people. Oh, no, everybody, the whole globe. For the Lord shall judge his people. Let's say that one more time. Moses, what did you say was going to happen in the latter days, Moses? What did you say was going to happen in the latter days, Moses, the prophet? For the Lord shall judge his people and shall be comforted over his servants. Hold on now. So, Moses, did you just say that while the Lord is judging a group of people, another group of people he called his servants are being comforted? So you mean to tell me there's judgment and comfort at the same time, Moses? Let's read it again. For the Lord shall judge his people and shall be comforted over his servants. Okay, So we shall know now that there is people being judged while another group of people being comforted. For he saw that they were utterly weakened and failed in the hostile invasion and were become feeble. Hold on, Moses. So you mean to tell me from the Greek version that it stated the Lord is judging his people via a hostile invasion? Hold on. I thought the futurist said the Lord himself is going to come down and kill plenty of people. He's going to destroy a lot of people. But here, Moses is saying in the last days, when the Lord is judging his people, he's using a hostile invasion. Whoa, the same thing the curses said in Deuteronomy 28. What a coincidence that the Lord is going to use the old covenant ordinances and judgments to judge his people who were under the old covenant. What a coincidence. But here's Isaiah 3. So that's how it's stated in Deuteronomy 32, the Song of Moses. Here's Isaiah 3, which was talking about that latter days judgment. Let's see what Isaiah said. Isaiah 3:13 from scroll 1Q, Isaiah Dead Sea Scrolls. Yahweh stands up to contend and stands to judge the peoples. Yahweh will enter into judgment with the elders of his peoples and their leaders. Hold on, let me say that again. Let me say that again. Because you remember how Moses called the elders, the leaders, and the officers and explained to them, because they were the rulers, they were supposed to be the one, they were supposed to be the light that guided Israel into correct behavior. So now it's explaining that those people who had that job, those quote unquote shepherds of Israel, it's explaining once again that the Lord has a problem with them and they were going to go to judgment. Same thing that Christ proclaimed, how the kingdom was going to be taken from the rich, from the people that sat in Moses' seat, from the scribes and the Pharisees, the rulers and teachers of Israel. The kingdom was going to be taken from them and given to the poor people, to the not people, the people that's considered not a people, and to the poor people. You remember the ones that the scribes and the Sadducees and the Pharisees called those people's sinners just because they was poor? They was like, those sinners don't know the law. Now you see who the proclamation is against. You remember Christ explained how the meek and the poor was going to inherit this kingdom he was talking about. Well, let's keep going on. It says, verse 14 from Isaiah 3. Yahweh will enter into judgment with the elders of his people and their leaders. It is you who have eaten up the vineyard. The plunder of the poor is in your houses. Look at verse 25. Your men shall fall by the sword, and your mighty in the war. Her gates shall lament and mourn, and she shall be desolate and sit on the ground. So you see how Isaiah explained in the last days, there was going to come a war which made Jerusalem desolate, which made all the mighty men of war in Jerusalem to fall by the sword. And Isaiah proclaims this as the judgment of Yahweh. I don't know when the judgment from Yahweh that all people was going to see, I don't know when that became him literally coming out of the sky. I don't know when people start taking the imagery language hyper literal, because through the prophets, it's already proclaimed that the judgment of Yahweh came via the nations he sent inside of the land to destroy the people who violated the covenant. I don't know when we start making it be about angels coming out of the sky with Christ on a white horse killing people. Man, have we lost the poetic language of Israel and substituted it with the hyper literalism of the Western world. But anyway, here goes Deuteronomy 32 from scroll 444. Once again, the Song of Moses. It stated this, verse 41 to 42. If I sharpen my glittering sword, my hand grasps it in judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and will repay those who hate me. He already explained in Deuteronomy 31. This is the children of Israel who start making new gods and worshiping those new gods, and they forsook the God that brought them out of Egypt. So that would be his enemies. He's not talking about no Psalms 83. Your enemies have came up against me, and he named 7 nations right there. That's not what he's talking about. He has already proclaimed his enemies in Deuteronomy 31. He's not skipping Deuteronomy 31 and going to the days of David. He's not skipping what he already proclaimed and made it be about whatever David is talking about in Psalms. That's not happening. That's what people do because they hate the reality that the Bible was talking to a covenant people, and it's about that covenant people going through a final judgment. So a new way, a new people, a new understanding could dawn and take over forever. But anyway, let's keep reading. Deuteronomy 32:41. If I sharpen my glittering sword, my hands grasp it in judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and will repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood. My sword shall devour flesh with the blood of the slain and the captives, and from the head of the leaders of the enemy. The Lord has already explained earlier in Deuteronomy 32 that he's using an hostile invasion to do this. And Deuteronomy 28 has already explained those hostile invaders would be a people that's swift as the eagle, and they're going to speak a language that Israel did not understand. And they was going to come in and destroy Israel and take them captive into all nations. This has already been explained in Deuteronomy 28, Deuteronomy 31. So this is Deuteronomy 32. It doesn't change. The Lord, Moses is just using poetic language, and he's explaining when the nations that the Lord sent in do these actions, it's classified or it's considered himself going in and doing that action. Isaiah 66 now. So that's proclaimed in the Song of Moses. Here's Isaiah 66 using that same Song of Moses. Isaiah 66:15. For behold, Yahweh will come with fire. Be like the whirlwind. But in reality, it is the nations coming in to do the will of the Lord. So let's go. For behold, Yahweh will come with fire, and his chariots will be like the whirlwind to render his anger with fierceness, and his rebuke with flames of fire. So we done already heard in Deuteronomy 31 that they was going to, in Deuteronomy 31 and 32, they was going to cause the Lord to be angry with them and have jealousy because of the things that they did as a covenant people. So now, and he said in the last days, he will in fact judge them because of their actions. So now he has been angered with them and he's coming with judgment. Verse 16. For Yahweh will come to execute judgment by fire. We done already read that in Deuteronomy 32. For the Lord shall judge his people. For Yahweh will come to execute judgment by fire and by his sword on all flesh. And those slain by Yahweh will be many. So then people say, well, right there, he says all flesh. So this is talking about all people. But right here, the next verse, he said, those slain will be many. Not all, but many. So did he just contradict himself when he said all flesh was going to receive the sword, but only many people will be slain? Not all? Of course not, because he's going to explain who the all and many is in the next verse. Verse 17 literally says this: those who sanctify themselves and purify themselves to go to the gardens behind one in the middle, eating pig's meat, abominable things, and the mouse, and they shall come to an end together, says Yahweh. First of all, you have to give credit to Isaiah using the imagery from the Garden of Eden right there on how these people are sanctifying and purifying themselves in the garden behind the tree, trying to cover themselves, but in reality, they are doing that which violates the law. So you got to give Isaiah the props for using that imagery from what happened in the Garden of Eden, the same way Moses and those that came after Moses, Daniel and all them, Paul, Christ, all of those use that same imagery from the Garden of Eden different ways. But he says that these people are eating pig's meat, abominable things, mouse. All of these people are doing the things that that goes against the ordinances and the statutes left by the Most High. Therefore, they're all going to be consumed together. Now, everyone, who did the Lord give those ordinances and statutes to? It wasn't given to every people. It was given to the people under the old covenant. Therefore, Isaiah is explaining how the Lord is coming to judge those who are violating the ordinances and statutes of the old covenant. Same thing Deuteronomy 32 is about. Same thing Deuteronomy 28 is about. Same thing Matthew 24 is about. Same thing Mark 13, Luke 17, Luke 21, the whole book of the Revelation. The same thing that this is about. Punishing people for violating that old covenant via the Song of Moses, which is only the curses found in Deuteronomy 28. So, y'all, I only got 3 more slides left, and then I'll be done. 3 slides left, and I'll be done. Here's another one, and this should be the most important one for you to understand what's happening in Deuteronomy 32, the fulfillment of it all. And may I add that when Paul was talking about life and death and in 1 Corinthians 15, how death would be swallowed up in victory? Well, Paul got that quotation. It's found in Hosea a little bit, but he got that quotation mainly from Isaiah. And woe and behold, Isaiah got it from the ideal. Isaiah got the ideal and the thought from the Song of Moses. Hold on, so you mean to tell me that death and resurrection is found in the Song of Moses? 100%. This is why Christ used Torah when talking to the Sadducees about the resurrection, because they didn't think there was a resurrection. They were saying that we're only sticking to the first 5 books, and Christ said, yes, resurrection is found in Torah. That's where it originated from. And then Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, using Genesis 1, Genesis 2, as well as Isaiah and Daniel, but he's explaining that his understanding of resurrection originated in Torah, just like Daniel's understanding of resurrection originated in Torah. Ezekiel's understanding of resurrection originated in Torah. All of the disciples' understanding of resurrection originated in Torah. So there's nothing that has not already been stated. It all originated in Torah. So now here's Moses' way of explaining the resurrection. And then we're going to see how Isaiah used it. So Deuteronomy 32 from scroll 1 through 15, verse 43. Rejoice, ye heavens, with his people, and bow down to him, all gods, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. In some renderings in the Dead Sea Scroll says, he will avenge the blood of his sons. He will take vengeance on his adversaries. And listen to the rest of this one. And avenge those who hate him, and will make atonement for his land and for his people. Now, here's a sidebar. You see how he said, and he will avenge those who hate him, and he's going to avenge the blood of his servants or sons. Y'all remember in Revelation 6, when they was under the altar, they were saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, before you avenge us of the blood of those who dwell on earth? How long before you avenge us? You mean to tell me that Revelation is about the Song of Moses? Of course, when you go to Revelation 15, it clearly says that those that was in heaven was singing the Song of Moses. What is the Song of Moses again? It's a song about judgment that was going to come against those under the old covenant for violating the old covenant. And he was going to use those curses in Deuteronomy 28 to bring about that judgment. So if Revelation is saying they're singing the Song of Moses, then what does Revelation got to be about? You see how we can't get futurism out of that? Once you actually use the Bible biblically and quit using CNN and whatever your news station is to try to discern and explain what the Bible is about, when you actually use the law and the prophets. But now let's just go here now. So Moses clearly said there was going to be a judgment and an atonement and some rejoicing. Now, what is atonement, everybody? When sin is covered and is removed from the sight of the Lord. So it's explained by Moses. There's going to come a judgment. And within that judgment, it was going to be an atonement which removed all sinned. Sorry about that, y'all. This is okra water, just in case y'all want to know what that slimy stuff is. It's okra water. But I just gotta make that. I'm not slobbing on myself, y'all. It's okra water. I just gotta let y'all know that. So now let's get back to it. So it's the blood of the servant. So the Lord explained there's going to be a judgment, there was going to be forgiveness of sins, and then there was going to be rejoicing. If you guys don't know, that's the resurrection. But let's show you this in Isaiah. So this is Isaiah 25, verse 8. It's stated this right here. Now you guys gotta keep up with me to understand how this is laid out. Verse 8. He has swallowed up death forever. The Lord Yahweh will wipe away tears from off all faces. He will take the reproach of his people away from off all the earth, for Yahweh has spoken it. So we're just going to look at that verse first. First of all, he's getting rid of death. He's also getting rid of sorrow and mourning. So we know from verse 8, the sorrow, the death is causing the sorrow and mourning. Now we done already read in Deuteronomy 32 how he's going to judge his people and he's going to comfort his sons. So there's a judgment and a comforting. So the comforting has to be Yahweh wiping away the tears from all faces. The comforting has to be death is swallowed up forever. But then in the next sentence, he explains exactly how death, well, the death he's speaking of. He explains what it is in the next sentence. It says this: he will take the reproach of his people away from off all earth. So the death that's being swallowed up is the reproach of his people that was on the earth. Now, being reproached because they became hated of all nations, because the Lord had to bring those nations inside. The Lord had to bring those nations inside to destroy them. So the reproach is via the curses. The death is via the curses. The separation. I will hide my face. My anger will be kindled against them. I will bring in a nation. I will judge my people. My glittering sword will be bathed in their blood. Destruction upon destruction. Forsaken upon forsaken. This is the death that had to be swallowed up. This was the death that was cast upon all nations. Why? Because all was considered sinners, and the covenant of Israel always kept the outside nations from coming to God, because the outside nations could only come to Israel. And when Israel then showed them the way, they would be considered a covenant people under God, but they still did not have access to all of God. They still had ordinances in which they could not go into certain part of the temple. They were still outside of the gates in perspective. They still could not enjoy all of the feast of the Lord. So they always still had a separation from the Lord, even when they came into Israel via that covenant. And not all of Israel could access the Lord. Only the priests really could access them. The women, the poor, and all those that's not of the priesthood, they only could go to certain parts of the temple, and then the priests had to take over. And then even the priests could not go into the Holy of Holies. Only the high priest could. There was always separation from God via that covenant. And it was always a curse because no one could do the covenant correctly. It was always a curse that befell them, always forsaking death and destruction. It was always there. So it was stated that in this final judgment, that death up, separation. In that day, what day? The day that the death is swallowed up, the day in which Paul said they're going to get be changed to the glory of the Lord, that day in which the tears would finally leave, and that day, this is what is supposed to be proclaimed. Behold, this Yahweh is our God. Now, he's the God of all. Ain't that not what Christ said in Matthew 22 when he was proclaiming to them how the resurrection of the dead occurred? He told the Sadducees, he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's not the God of the dead, but of the living. So these people was physically dead, but they wasn't dead in God, which is the true death. They wasn't dead in God. He would still be considered their God. And Christ used that as a teaching point to explain what the resurrection really is. It's when he becomes your God. And when he's your God, in that, and not your God via the old covenant in which he's always separated from you, but he's your God in that quote unquote new way, death would be swallowed up. Listen, let me say it again. It shall be said in that day, behold, this Yahweh is our God. We have waited for him and he will save us. So now they are trusting and believing in God again. What did Deuteronomy, was it 32 say? They are a faithless people. Now, these people have gained their faith back. We have waited for him and he will save us. This is Yahweh. We have waited for him. We will be glad and rejoice in his salvation. Now, when did the Song of Moses say the rejoicing was supposed to happen? Rejoice, you heavens, with his people. When he avenged the blood of his servants, take vengeance on his adversaries, when he avenged those who hate him, and make atonement for his people and his land. So when they see that judgment and that atonement that follows, which is pretty the same thing, when they see that atonement, then they rejoice because they know now they have became once again family of God. That might not be big to you, but it was big to them. So here's Isaiah 26. I want to read verse number 1. It says from the Dead Sea Scrolls, 1Q. In that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. God appoints salvation for walls and bulwarks. Open your gates, that the righteous nation may enter. The one who keeps faith. Let me say it again. The one who keeps faith. Isaiah. When Moses was saying in the Song of Moses that these people are going to rejoice during all this time, what is the rejoicing about? Now there is a nation of people who keep. Remember, Deuteronomy 32 said, in the of the followers of the Messiah. Let's look at verse number 8. Yes, in the way of your judgments, Yahweh, have we waited for you. So remember, they waited for the judgments to happen. What's said in Isaiah 25? This is our God. This is Yahweh who we waited for. What's happening in Revelation 6? They're waiting for the judgment. How long, holy God, holy and true, before you judge the world, those that spilled our blood? Now you see Isaiah 26. We waited for your judgments. Your name and your renowned law are the desire of our soul. With my soul, I have desired you in the night. Yes, with my spirit within me, I will seek you earnestly. Sorry about that, y'all. I think, okay, yeah, I'm still here. I will seek you earnestly. For when your judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world learn righteousness. Say that again. Say that again. When your judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world learn righteousness. So is the Lord just killing people to kill people? What they want you to believe? These judgments have a point. People are learning the cause of these judgments. Hey, why did Jerusalem get destroyed? Isaiah 66. Why did they have to go and proclaim the glory of the Lord to all the nations? For the nations to learn about the Lord. They used the judgments. These people were judged because they were killers. They were idolaters. They mistreated the orphans and the poor and the widows. These people, they increased the borders of their land. They were wicked, and etc. They were extorters, and etc. And it's explaining that the Lord doesn't like these actions. Therefore, he responds to these actions in a way via judgment to take all of the wicked people out of the land to purge the land. So this is learned in judgment. And look what it says in verse 19. Your dead shall live. My dead bodies shall arise. He stated this after he expounded on how the judgments in the earth teach people righteousness. So now, when these people are learning righteousness via the judgment, which happens and atonement, is now stating that the dead are actually coming to life. The dead don't come to life until righteousness is learned, until righteousness is proclaimed, until atonement is made. So, do you guys get who the dead is? Because you remember in Isaiah 25, he swallowed up death. And we already explained what that was. So this would be the people who partook in that death that he swallowed up. Now they are living. Now they are arising out of the earth. And listen to what he says. Awake and sing. What is this? A rejoicing. Awake and sing, you who dwell in the dust. What is that? Adam became a living soul. So now, in like manner, here's Isaiah using the Adam linkage, same thing that Daniel used. Those that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. We find out that this is because of the part of the judgment they are on. But anyway, some got the life, some got the death via the judgment. So during that time, they all awoke. But anyway, awake and sing, you who dwell in the dust. For your dew is like the dew of herbs, and the earth will cast out the departed spirits. Now look at verse 20. Come, my people, enter into your rooms and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself for a little moment until the indignation is past. So the Lord is saying he's going to bring them, he's going to give them life. And when they receive that life, they have to, quote unquote, hide because indignation, judgment is occurring. And that judgment has to pass. So what's happening? These people are waking up. And when they wake up, they're waking up to understand the righteousness of the judgments of God. And when they are awoke and understand that righteousness, understand thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not destroy, thou shalt not expand thy borders, thou shalt not hurt the widow or the orphans, thou shalt feed this people. When these people are thirsty, thou shalt give them something to drink. When they're in prison, thou shalt go visit them. When the people learn this, they're no longer considered dead, but they know that there is a judgment that comes for the wicked. Therefore, they are meant to hide themselves, aka flee into the mountains, aka flee like a second Exodus. They have to hide themselves until the indignation, until the judgment passes. Isaiah 26:21. For behold, Yahweh comes out of his place. to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth also will disclose her blood and will no longer cover her slain. Oh, verse 21 explains it all. It says Yahweh is coming to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their sin, and the earth will show all of the blood that has been shed in her. And I'm going to show you that this is a land of Canaan. This is Isaiah expressing it in poetic language, what was supposed to befall those in the land of Canaan who violated the covenant. Just to put this on top, Isaiah 27:2. For you have made a city into a heap, a fortified city into a ruin, a palace of strangers to be no city. It would never be built. Another thing that was supposed to come against Jerusalem. All right, y'all, I got 2 more slides and I'm done. It took a long time for that one, but I promise y'all, this is going to speed up. And put Isaiah 26:21 in the back of your mind, because it's going to come back up on how the earth is going to disclose her blood, no longer cover her slain. And that happens when the dead bodies arise, when they start rejoicing, and etc. So when the blood is disclosed from the earth, that's when the quote unquote resurrection occurs. That's when quote unquote death is swallowed up forever. And we're going to show you that Isaiah got this understanding from Torah as well as the Song of Moses. We're going to prove that in just a second. Deuteronomy 32:28. It is a nation that has lost counsel, neither is there understanding in them. Isaiah 27 from the scroll 1Q, verse 11. When its boughs are withered, they will be broken off. The women will come and set them on fire, for they are a people of no understanding. Deuteronomy 32:28. Neither is there an understanding in them. Therefore, this is Isaiah again. Therefore, he who made them will not have compassion on them, and he who formed them will show them no favor. Remember, he said in Song of Moses, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be, for they are a foolish nation, a nation of no counsel. There's no understanding in them. I'm going to judge them. I'm going to, my sword shall be bathed in their blood. See, once again, Isaiah is sticking to the Song of Moses. So here's Deuteronomy 32 again, verse 43. Rejoice, heavens, with his people, and bow down to him, all gods, for he will avenge the blood of his sons. He will take vengeance on his adversaries and avenge those who hate him, and make atonement for his land and his people. Now, this is Isaiah 4 from scroll 1Q, verse 3. And thank y'all for rocking with me this long. I promise y'all I am getting ready to end this. I got 1.5 left of these slides, and I'm done. It will happen that he who is left in Zion and he who remains in Jerusalem shall be called holy. So these are the people who did not get destroyed. Even everyone who is written among the living in Jerusalem. So that's one of your instances of the book of life right there in Isaiah 4. There's one of your instances of the book of life. Even everyone who is written among the living in Jerusalem. That's one of your markers about the book of life. So here's verse 4. When the Lord shall have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and shall have purged the blood of Jerusalem from within it, by the spirit of justice and by the spirit of storm. And some places have burning, other places have storm in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So here you see that Isaiah, using the Song of Moses again, is explaining that there was going to come a judgment in Jerusalem in which the filth would be washed away and the blood purged, right? Means that everyone was wicked people are taken away. So if only the wicked people are taken away, the people who remain would be righteous. They will be called holy. The judgment doesn't touch them. They are the righteous branch, not the wicked ones that got taken away. So the righteous people have had their sins purged. Now, here's Isaiah 27 from scroll 1Q, verse 9. It says this: Therefore, by this is the iniquity of Jacob. Sorry, the iniquity of Jacob will be forgiven. And this is all the fruit of taking away his sin, that he makes all the stones of the altar as chalk stones that are beaten in pieces, so that the Asherah poles and the incense altars shall rise no more. So Isaiah 27 explains that Jacob's sins are forgiven when an event comes that makes the altar be as chalk stones. In other words, it destroys the altar. Everyone, the altar is destroyed in judgment. The temple is destroyed in judgment. Jerusalem is destroyed in judgment. Therefore, Isaiah is explaining when that judgment comes and it affects the altar, it affects all of it, it affects the altar, then the sins of Jacob would be forgiven. And why around the time of judgment? Because to the ancient Israelites, judgment occurred in two phases, one during trumpets and the other during atonement. So if this is a judgment dealing with atonement, that would mean after that judgment, the sins would be forgiven and taken away because the judgment, the atonement has occurred, which covers sin. So when there's no more sin, when judgment has come, then all sin is taken away, and Jerusalem and Jacob can be gathered in the Lord in a new and safe way. All right, so here's Numbers 35 now from scroll 4Q27. And this is what was happening in that Isaiah 26:21 that I told you to remember. That the earth will disclose her blood and no longer cover her slain. This is Numbers 35, verse 33. So you shall not pollute the land where you live, for blood pollutes the land. No atonement can be made for the land for the blood that is shed in it, but by the blood of him who shed it. You shall not defile the land which you inhabited, where I dwell, for I Yahweh dwell among the children of Israel. So the Lord is saying, as long as the land is not polluted, I dwell there. I will not dwell there in a land that's polluted. But notice, Numbers 35 stated, which is Torah, the only way the land could be atoned for is by the blood of the people who shed blood in it have their blood shed in the same manner. See, the Lord uses like the opposite end of the coin to do his punishments. So the way that you violate, the Lord uses similar punishments to violate you for you to understand from your actions. So their action is shedding blood in the land. So the Lord's action is now your blood is going to be shed in that same land. In fact, I'm going to proclaim that this land cannot be atoned for at all if someone sheds blood in it, except by having their blood shed in it. Now, y'all know in Deuteronomy 32, it says in verse 43, the Lord will make atonement for his land and his people. That means that Moses is declaring that in the last days, some people was going to shed blood in the promised land. And in that same people will have their blood shed in the promised land. So Moses is explaining in which what the Lord called, they're going to persecute you from city to city, they're going to kill you, and etc. All of that was proclaimed to occur in the latter days. And we know that the Messiah explained this was going to happen to his disciples, declaring that the latter days that Moses was talking about is the time period of the disciples. So when Isaiah said the earth will disclose the blood in it, he's making a proclamation, right? The proclamation that he is making is that this land will all of the bloodshed, that blood will be shed. This is what Christ was telling them in Matthew 23, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth. He said that for a reason, bloodshed on the earth, because he was proclaiming the Deuteronomy 32 land atonement via the war was going to come upon the rulers as well as the wicked people in Jerusalem, in Judea at that time. Therefore, he said, upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, who you slew between the temple and the altar. Once again, proving a land atonement has to occur. And we know atonement means that the land would no longer have sin in it. Therefore, the people would no longer have sin in it, and the land would no longer have sin in it. And when the land is atoned for, guess what? Out of those evil spirits in that land, they have to leave as well, because now this is a holy land. See, this land is like what's on top of Sinai when Moses was upon Sinai and etc. When Moses went upon those mountains and that was holy ground, now we see once again this whole land is becoming holy ground now. So there's no room for evil spirits. There's no room for quote unquote Satans and devils and demons and etc. Because now this whole land has become holy, allowing the new heavenly Jerusalem to seat itself right on that holy land and continue to expound. But the point is, the heavens are rejoicing because not only has the sons been avenged, but the land has been atoned for and the people have been atoned for. All things have been atoned for. All evils have been corrected. That's why they are rejoicing. And Isaiah is singing this same song of rejoicing in his days. He's using the Song of Moses. This is my last slide. The Song of Moses concluded. Leviticus 25, 9, and 10. In the seventh month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall proclaim, you shall make a proclamation with the sound of a trumpet in all your land. On the day of atonement, you shall make a proclamation with the trumpet in all your land. Verse 10. And you shall sanctify the year, the 50th year, and ye shall proclaim a release upon the land to all that inhabit it. It shall be given a year of release, a jubilee for you, and each one shall depart to his possession, and you shall go each to his family. So, in other words, Moses is explaining that during the year of Jubilee, on the day of atonement, you're going to blow a trumpet. Paul called this in 1 Corinthians 15 the final trumpet. So you're going to blow that final trumpet, which is at the day of atonement, which represents a judgment, a releasing of sin, and all people are able to come back into the body of the Lord. They are able to return back to their God, which Paul, under an analogy, explains how the corruptible is going to put on incorruption and the mortal is going to put on immortality. And people think that this is about a literal body, which it was actually about those people coming into the fullness of the body of Christ, being an inheritor of the Father, just like the Son was, which is true life, the knowledge of God. And when God becomes your God, you are no longer dead. Therefore, you have went through the resurrection, which is what Paul was talking about. And the time appointed by God for that to happen was the judgment in which the land was going to be atoned for. That's what it's all about. That final judgment, which we know happened 70 AD when Rome came in and destroyed all of the violators of the covenant, because that was part of the curses found in Deuteronomy 28. That was a day of the Lord. This was the final time that the curses of Deuteronomy was going to happen. Within this judgment, the Lord took away the curses, he took away the old covenant, and he took away every possible way for you to be inside of the old covenant. So the only way you are in the old covenant now is through the figment of your imagination. So this is the last one. Deuteronomy 32. I got 5 verses, and I'm going to read them straight through. Deuteronomy 32:32. For their vine is of the vine of Sodom, and their vine branch of Gomorrah. Their grape is a grape of gall. Their cluster is one of bitterness. Isaiah 3 from 1Q, Isaiah 9. Isaiah 3 verse 9. The look of their faces testify against them. They parade their sin like Sodom, and they do not hide it. Woe to their soul, for they have brought disaster upon themselves. So the Lord explained in the last days, they brought disaster upon themselves because of the sins they have created. In fact, he said their sin is like Sodom. And if you go into Ezekiel, one of the major sins of Sodom was their pride, the way that they treated their neighbors and their pride. That was one of the major sins that the Lord judged Sodom and Gomorrah for. All right, so here's, according to Ezekiel, here's Isaiah 25 from scroll 1Q, verse 8. He has swallowed up death forever. The Lord Yahweh will wipe away tears from off all faces. He will take the reproach of his people away from off all the earth, for Yahweh has spoken it. Verse Isaiah 65, verse 18 through 19. But be glad and rejoice forever, in which I create. So you keep saying all this word, rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. For behold, I create Jerusalem to be a delight, and her people a joy. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. And the voice of weeping and the voice of crying will be heard in her no more. So the Lord is finally rejoicing in his people. See, his face is no longer hid from them. His face is hid from them when they are in sin. So now he's rejoicing in them, which means there's no more sin. And when there's no more sin, there's no more curse. When there's no more curse, there's no more weeping. When there's no more weeping, there's no more sorrow. When there's no more sorrow, the people are at rest. When the people are at rest, they are in a forever Sabbath. When they are in a forever Sabbath, they have fallen under the goal of the Lord for his people. And when they have fallen under the goal of the Lord for his people, they are in fact in God in every point, every way, which is opposite of death and crying. Thank you all for listening in. This is Elvin Israel from the Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. I have just proven how Isaiah was using the Song of Moses and explaining the Song of Moses a little bit, and a little bit more details for the people who followed the story of Israel. Thank you all for listening in. I will mute my mic, and we will proceed and end it when uh, my brothers are finished, if they have anything they want to say. Thank y'all. And I know this was a long one. All right. Anyone got anything to say on stage before we close this thing out? All right. I'll just close it out then. I'm gonna close it out with a prayer. Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to have another bill. I know it's kind of late, but your will be done nonetheless. May people take your story and your wise words within these stories and analogies and parables and metaphors and historical events and non-historical events. May we take all of the messages inside of them, the ones that you want us to understand. May we learn those messages, and may we live those messages out, and may we be able to effectively teach those messages to others. May we have health, wealth, and success. May we yearn for having a life with you. May we seek you every day. May we learn from your words. May you bring more and more people in our way, and we give them and bless us to give them the correct information. May you expand the kingdom and make sure we each do our assignment in the continuation of the building up of the kingdom. May we be able to withstand the mockers and the scoffers. May we still be blessed with faith and patience. And may you have patience with us. May we be in grace and trust in you with all our heart, mind, soul, spirit. And until we meet again, keep us all safe and secure. Amen. Thank y'all all for listening in. I'm finna get ready to close out. I know it was late. My apologies. But this is on replay if you want to listen to it again. And I will see you guys next Sunday. Thank you all for listening in. I'm finna close the room. Thank y'all for listening in as well. I'm finna close the stage. Y'all stay in shalom. Thank y'all for rocking with me. I clicked the wrong thing.